Hello, hello. Hello and welcome. Welcome everyone. Welcome to this interesting webinar brought to you by Singular Foods. I am Roberto Guerra of Singular Foods, of course, and I work in the vegan and all protein sector. And we're here today to talk about the interesting topic of how the up-and-coming industry of cell-based meat or cultivated meat, there are different ways to call it, how this is going to affect the plant-based sector. It's obviously going to affect every food sector, the traditional food sector, but it's also going to affect the plant-based food sector. And let's see how it turns out. And that's it. So yeah, we're going to see how it affects the established industries in the food sector today all around the world, because it's coming. The cultivated meat industry is coming. And I think it's pretty exciting myself, and I'm pretty excited about these changes. Today we're joined by Eric Jenkusky. He's the co-founder of Matrix Food Technologies, and he's here to talk to us about the cultivated meat sector. Has a lot of experience in this area. Dwayne Holmes unfortunately had a last-minute emergency, so he will not be able to join us today. But we're also here with Pablo Ponce. He's a food technologist and CellAg mindset builder for us right here, Singular Foods, and I'm your host, Roberto Guerra, as you already know. So, actually, Eric, go ahead. Can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the area of cultivated meat.
Well, Roberto, thanks for having me here today. I actually kind of stumbled upon the market, was not actually really looking at alternative proteins, and I had been working with one of Matrix's investor groups, and I was given the opportunity to take a look at this Matrix technology by one of Matrix's board members, Dr. Robert Lee, who was with Ecove Startup Nursery at the time. And after I took a deep dive and looked at it after a few weeks, I said to myself, this is something I want to be involved in, because it was like being in the room with Henry Ford when they decided to introduce the combustion engine to replace the horse and carriage. It was such a paradigm shift in how we would be feeding the planet going forward. So I decided to become involved, and was fortunate enough to be able to join Dr. Jed Johnson, my co-founder at the time. And we launched Matrix in the fall of 2019. Okay. And then recently I did step down as CEO in December, and Taryn Wolf, who was our VP, has since assumed the CEO leadership role at Matrix, and the team continues to do great work there.
All right, great. Nice. Great. Thanks. And Pablo, go ahead. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience and what you've learned and your experience in the cultivated meat sector. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I'm Pablo Ponce Lopez, and I am the food technologist and CellAg mindset builder for Singular Foods. And I have an education based in biology and tissue engineer. I've always been enthusiastic about this topic, the cultivated meat field, and how it can solve worldwide problems, environmental issues mainly. And yeah, as part of the Singular Food project, we think that the current food industry is old-fashioned, And there we want to push from Singular Foods. We want to push and move the food industry forward to modern times through digitalization, sustainability, healthy eating patterns, and culture. Through these four pillars, we will drive and inspire the future of food with a special focus on design and innovation. And that's why we are organizing these events to talk about innovative technologies like cultivated meat, and to make it closer to future consumers and interested people that are on this field.
All right, great, excellent, great. Thanks, Pablo. So yeah, so as a lot of you know, or many of you don't know, cultivated meat has already been fully approved in Singapore. It's the only country right now where cultivated meat is fully approved. It was approved in, I believe it started in late 2020 when I wrote for
Right.
Xcusas. I was one of the people who initially reported on it, and yeah, it was pretty interesting time. And yeah, right now it's available to consumers. So just a few months ago, another interesting little bit of information here. The Food and Drug Administration of the United States concluded that Upside Foods, their cultivated chicken is safe to eat. So that pretty much has, it's been a big step forward in the approval process of cultivated meat in the United States. So it's pretty fascinating. So you can say technically it's like the green light, but there's a few more green lights to go. But hopefully, they'll be making it there pretty soon, and who knows when. This will be available in supermarkets in the U.S. And then I imagine from there, it's going to be pretty soon here in Europe too. I think it's a little more complicated because there's 27 countries in the EU, so they'll have to approve, they'll have to agree. But it's coming regardless. So here's a few questions that I have. First, Eric, I'm curious. So I don't know. What do you think? Will the plant-based and cultivated meat industries become competitors or allies once cultivated meat is on the market? What are your thoughts?
I think that the challenge of feeding the world, as we move towards say 2050 and the population growth that's projected, all of the above is going to be required to be able to meet those food challenges. And I don't personally view. I think the food industry is already rather segmented, and I don't believe that plant-based. There are some folks out there that try to make it a competition between plant-based and cultivated meat, but I don't see it long term. Going that direction. Of course, once this nascent industry has institutional investing from the Wall Street level, not just social impact investors and the type, then there's going to be a lot of competitive pressure to be able to deliver results for your stockholders, etc. But up until that point, I don't see. I think it'll just be competition in general. It won't be plant-based versus cultivated meat. I actually see for at least a decade or more, hybrid food products are going to be where most of the companies. And the interesting thing is, most people eat hybrid food products right now and don't even realize they're eating them, right?
That's true.
So I think consumer acceptance is once these products are out in the market, they're going to be able to. I see it in my own supermarket, the absolute explosion of plant-based products that are now available that weren't even available like pre-pandemic, and it's and I think the pandemic actually helped, quite frankly, accelerate some of these products.
Yeah, for sure. It was definitely a game changer. It had a lot of negative impacts overall, but some positive impacts as well in innovation and just the way we look at food. It affected food prices. It was it pretty much disrupted everything. So I'm hoping in the long term that disruption ended up being a positive disruption. For the plant-based, I think it was overall a positive. I guess time will tell. Pablo, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, in this topic, allies or enemies, I also agree with Eric. I think the battle is more between conventional meat products and alternative protein products. And in this case, plant-based and cell-based products are allies, as they have the same mission to bring an alternative to these people that is have environmental concerns, and they want to put a lower impact from their diet. So in this case, they are for sure allies, and even the cell-based products and the cell-based the cultivated meat field will need for sure the help of the plant-based industry to be hybrid, to create hybrid products, which will be probably the first products, cultivated meat products, that we will see in the supermarkets. Then in the supermarkets, are as they have kind of the same target. The target is pretty similar. These products might compete as well, but yeah, this is the how the market works, I guess. But mainly they will be allies, and they will help each other to feed the growing population, as Eric was saying before. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. Another interesting thing, plant-based is already pretty much, well, not completely, but it's been around for a while, the plant-based meat substitutes. I'm thinking there's more and more acceptance, but let's talk about consumer acceptance in the cultivated meat area. Eric, what do you think? I don't know, what do you think? How is the panorama looking in the U.S. and we can start in the U.S. and maybe, about other parts of the world, but what do you think? How do you think it's looking in with regards to consumer acceptance? Are most people willing, to consume this, or are a lot of people kind of afraid? Or I'm sure that'll change eventually, anyways. But I don't know. What are your thoughts?
There are, there are definitely the detractors, right? There are those that are, innately, most human beings are actually innately resistant to change, right? It's just a natural. People like comfort. They want to know what the future holds, and they don't want their day disrupted, right? And then they want to have to make these decisions. But ultimately, we kind of don't have a choice. And these products are not the Frankenstein that some of the detractors try to, Frankenstein type products that people try to play them off as. It's just not, it's just not true. So I personally think that once you're able to make a sound case to the public that you have a choice between a product that's ethically and sustainably produced against a product that has now a long history of issues around it. And I've often said that if you went to the great business schools of the world, business universities, and you asked them to create a brand new meat system, would it look like the meat system we have now? It wouldn't. There's no way anybody would create a system like this, because it's a system that has issues compounded upon issues over the course of a millennia, right? Over 1,000 years. So, and we're trying to disrupt that in basically a decade, since Mark Post and the team put the hamburger together in Maastricht. We're trying to do this in 10 years time, which is, I think that's the other thing. I think we need to temper our expectations of the industry, more. I mean, even today, we're still looking at least here in the U.S., looking at 2028 is if you look at press releases from some of the leaders, like with Blue Nalu or Upside. That's the time frame that they're thinking that they'll be able to produce the level of product to be able to get it to the mass population or mass consumer. Restaurants, of course, I think it's going to be much faster. It could even be later this year, perhaps. But ultimately, I think people, once they have an opportunity to taste the products, they're gonna accept them. We at Matrix, we were fortunate enough, one of the things, and Taryn and the team just put this out recently at Matrix, that we created our own in-house chicken nuggets, first chicken nuggets grown in the state of Ohio. And I think, and we didn't do that to be a competitor in the food industry. We did that to demonstrate the capability of our plant-based scaffolds, and that Matrix is the leader in that area. But ultimately, people, once they get a chance to try it, I think they're gonna say, wow, there's really not a difference, and if they know that they can buy these products, as I stated earlier, and they're sustainable and ethical, why would you not choose to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think, just like you said, at first, like with everything, like when the first cell phones came out, I think a lot of people freaked out, or that, the radiation and, from the, the signal, and there was just a lot of fear, and now it's, I'm not afraid of my cell phone. I think most people aren't, and will kind of laugh at it, but how it was. What do you think, Pablo? How about consumer acceptance in Spain and in Europe? What are your thoughts?
Well, there are some studies where they surveyed people what are their thoughts about cultured meat, and if they would like to try it, how they're measuring the willingness of these people to try this product. And there was one of these studies was carried in Italy, and all of them, I've seen some of them are from USA, Asia, and also Italy, and all of them agree that first, well, the initially, so in these surveys, what they were doing is asking people what are their thoughts about cultivated meat. Then they register they do the survey, and then they explain in a simply, in not really deep in technology and so on. They just explain how the manufacture process goes to produce cultivated meat, and they also explain the positive impact that this product could carry to nowadays. And after explaining simply all these things, the survey registered a huge increase in the consumer acceptance of cultivated meat products. So that shows that talking about this new field, this incoming product, and spreading it, and trying to bring trustness, to build trustness in the consumer, is really positive, and is the way that we have to work to make this product trustful.
Yeah. Another, some objections that I've already heard and that you'll hear a lot is that cultivated meat, that's not natural. But I think it's a kind of funny argument. It's like, first of all, like none of the food we really eat these days is completely natural. Especially conventional meat it's not natural, and it's fantastically cruel, and it's unsustainable and all that. And I think I just think it's kind of a funny argument, like brushing your teeth with toothpaste isn't exactly natural either, but we're not, afraid to do it. So,
yeah, we don't live in the wild. It's nothing natural in our lifestyle, right? And still people is demanding this naturalness or so on.
Yeah. Yeah, if we were totally natural, I don't think I might not be alive. I'm 42 right now. The average expectancy in the wild, I wonder what it is. Living in the forest, being totally natural. One thing that I wouldn't say concerned about, but I know it's coming. It's already starting, but once this is accepted, there's going to be a lot of misinformation. There's going to be a battle. It's happening. I've seen it a lot with the plant-based industry. You've seen all these, with the recent Bloomberg article pretty much attacking Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods. And I was surprised. Like, Bloomberg is it's a serious media outlet. This isn't some weird tabloid, and it's been around in a lot of different media outlets. And I know it's coming with lab grown. I was going to get to that. With cultivated meat, I hate the term lab grown meat myself. I know once they use that term, it's like trying to make it seem unnatural. So everybody kind of freaks out. Lab grown, it's made in a lab. Don't eat it. Even though a lot of meat a lot of food in general is produced in a lab. But Eric, what are your thoughts? Is there like do you know if there's like a plan to combat all the misinformation? Do you think the industry is ready for this?
That was actually this was a topic that I covered back when I spoke in San Francisco at oh my heavens, Alex Serraz is gonna I can't CMS, yeah, at CMS. It was one of the topics that that I was talking about, that we have to do a much better job as an industry. Now, of course, a few of the big players, Val are not Val, Upside, at least in the U.S., Upside and Blue Nalu, and a couple, they have a little consortium, but I think that, and we have obviously the Good Food Institute, we have New Harvest. I don't think any one of them is a true industry trade group, and that's what I believe. At least the way the U.S. works, I think we need an industry trade group for alternative, at very least alternative proteins, and if not specifically for cultivated meat, to develop that that messaging. I mean, when I first started out, a lot of people were calling it cultured meat or lab grown meat. I mean, should we call it factory processed meat for our traditional meat? And so people start to understand that it's really all processed in this rather disturbing factory setting. Maybe we have to do that. I know there's a big battle. There's a big battle going on regarding naming. I think that's one of the things that's slowing down the USDA and the FDA, is they're trying to define. You can grow chicken cells as an example, but are you growing chicken cells that have the full nutritional profile? And if you're not, how do you define between those things? And I think that's one of the challenges that folks are trying to overcome at the moment. But yes, we definitely need a strategic communications plan, and because we are going to get attacked in the U.S., they're already calling folks like myself soy boys. It's like ridiculous. And some of the people that are out there making these, they don't understand that they don't understand that we're not all going to snap our fingers and overnight the traditional meat industry goes away. That's not going to happen. This is going to be incremental, probably over the course of 100 years, 2 to 3 generations of people. But by the time my grandkids are growing up, they're not going to know the difference. When they say I'm going to have meat, it's most likely I'm going to have some meat to eat tonight. It's most likely going to be cultivated meat. They're not even going to use the word cultivated anymore. They're just going to say I'm having meat.
They're just going to say meat.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's the way it'll eventually go. But some of these, like I said, some of these folks out there, they're looking to protect your interest. The bottom line is, it all comes down to money, and people are looking to protect their own livelihoods, and I get that. So we do have to be cognizant of that and try to provide alternatives. One of the things that I can see easily happening is here in Ohio in the late 1980s. It's probably not the same in Europe, at least in Germany and places like that. But in the 1980s, there was only about 30 microbreweries in the state of Ohio. By this year, there's almost 400 microbreweries in the state of Ohio that are brewing their own beer. And I could see this industry going the same way. Farming could be where the farms are still trying to raise the good breeds of cattle, as an example, that will be extracting live biopsies to produce the cultivated meat. And that cultivated meat, there's no reason why that meat couldn't be produced on the exact farms that families have owned maybe for several hundred years. There's no reason why that could not happen. So that's one of the directions I can see this industry going, to make sure that everybody has a stake, pun intended, in the business.
Yeah, sure. I haven't thought about that. People can have the same farms and things, except they just wouldn't have to kill. They would have a lot less cattle, and they don't have to kill the cattle. So You know, it would just be like it would be almost like they would be like sanctuaries, I guess. You know, almost. You know, they can, you know, name the cow. Like, oh yeah, I always thought it would be interesting, you know, to go to a steakhouse and you're eating a steak, and then they can show you actually like I don't know, it's a funny thought, like live film of the cow. Be like, oh, by the way, this is the cow right now that you're eating. The cow's fine. Like, hey, the cow's name is Toby. You know, and
Yeah.
like,
You can pet
oh, wow,
it. Yeah.
Toby tastes really good. Thanks, Toby.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. Well,
Exactly.
yeah, and there's a lot of like even the cruise ship industry now. Cruise ships are now brewing beer on board
Yeah. Well,
while you're cruising, and
yeah.
you're drinking that industry's that particular cruise line's beer, and they're turning the tanks. Some of the companies are they'll turn the tanks twice in an 8 or 9 day cruise.
Yeah.
So why if they're fermenting beer on board, why couldn't they do alternative protein?
Yeah, that would be great. Also, you think that? Yeah, you think that eventually it could be so easy that it could be done like on a cruise ship or like just but that would be fascinating. I know
Absolutely.
I was going to say I see supermarkets also as another and today if you go into Carrefour, I'll throw that one out there for our European viewers. You go into a Carrefour and it looks very similar to today, but in the future upstairs they'll be doing vertical farming and hydroponics, and then the basement they'll be doing cultivated meat, and everything will be right there. There was a time when bakeries were separate and butcher shops were separate from supermarkets, and it all migrated in. So that's another direction, especially with the way like companies here in the U.S. like Kroger have just embraced the plant-based, market. That could, that could also be a way the future goes, and it also decentralizes the food system. That makes it easier to overcome natural disasters, like another pandemic or some other type of. I've always viewed being. I didn't say earlier, but I have a 30-year career in defense, in the military, and I have always viewed alternative protein, in particular cultivated meat, as a peace and stability issue, similar to the way the internet provides access. In Africa, as an example, people have jumped over a lot of the infrastructure expense that the rest of the world, or at least Europe and the U.S. and North America, had to put in telephone lines and all that. Well, they don't have to do that, and now folks are using their cell phones, right, to conduct commerce. There's a number of countries that don't have the agricultural land that is required to feed their own populace, so that makes them dependent upon other countries. Cultivated meat helps them become self-sufficient, and I think that's quite frankly one of the reasons why Israel is so focused on the cultivated meat industry. It's about self-sufficiency.
Exactly, producing locally and not depending on others to keep your autonomy.
Correct.
Absolutely.
And Singapore too, right? Because I believe Singapore imports most of their food because they're
they're a city state. There's really no agriculture.
They don't have any rules.
It all comes from Malaysia and Brunei and.
True. Yeah. So
Australia is also one of the more powerful industries in the cultivated meat field. They are also pushing a lot forward, and that's also because they don't want to depend on anybody. They want to just produce there locally.
And I just saw that my good friends George and Tim at the co-founders of Val submitted their application to the Australian government to be able to get their food products approved in Australia. So that's awesome.
Yeah, that's great news. For sure.
I just read that today in The Economist. That they were doing that. So that's great. Hopefully it comes out sooner. It's really fascinating. How about you, Pablo? What do you think? I don't know. Do you know? Well, we both live in Spain. I'm in Spain and you're in Spain. But you're in southern Spain. I'm in central Spain. A little colder here right now than. you think there's I don't know, you think there's a lot of misinformation also here in Spain regarding the, I haven't read that much, I don't read too much Spanish media. Actually, most of the media that I read is in the US, even though I live here. I need to be more focused on here, but I still
focus more in Europe and in Spain too. There's no misinformation because there is no information at all. This topic is still under below the blanket, and no, they are not talking about it. But in the fake news era that we are right now, and I think in the next years when this topic is louder and louder here in Europe and then in Spain, I think that there will be a lot of misinformation coming mainly from the meat industry. The meat industry is really powerful. It has a lot of influence. It has people all around, like politicians, and so they will see this as a threat for sure, and they will then create fake news with impressive headlines, and people will just read this headline and not the whole news, and they will mess everything up, and I think that's why it's important that we are doing something like this, talking about this topic openly. We are open to any questions that people might have, and just to bring true and honest information. And I recommend, if in the future when people see some of these news related, they apparently they don't call themselves fake news. So when people see this news, I just ask them to be careful and to read the whole thing, because they might be creating and scaring the population so they don't trust this field that it will be growing and it will have a really positive impact.
Yeah, hopefully, in say 20 years from now or 30 years from now, people will look back and be like, oh, look at what they were writing in 2023, 2024. Like, that's so funny, It's just like, obviously, so hopefully it'll be like, like like the tobacco industry. Like, if you read old articles saying, oh, tobacco is actually good for you, we laugh like, oh, that was
absolutely. Yeah, they were people, runners and professional athletics were smoking cigarettes for advertisements and so on.
Yeah. So here's an interesting question. Do both industries target? Let's start with Eric. Like, what do you think in the United States? Do both industries, or will both industries, once they're both established, do you think they'll be targeting the same consumers, the same types of consumers, or is this a different group of consumers, or are they different and similar in some ways? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I think that quite frankly, the vegetarian vegan market is targeted more by the plant-based. Many of vegans and vegetarians that I've spoken with across the U.S. have said, we're not really interested in trying cultivated meat. The flexitarian, like myself, that's willing to eat both plant-based and traditional meat products. That's where I think cultivated meats consumer sweet spot is going to be. And if we can identify folks that are willing to be early adopters, and then they become that family member that brings the cultivated meat hamburger to the family barbecue, then that's I think that's how it's going to happen. Just like they used to do taste challenges in the past with Pepsi and Coke, and I think if something very similar, you're going to see these taste challenges where you'll have cultivated meat hamburger next to a traditional hamburger, and the flexitarian will try each and won't know the difference.
Yeah, that's great. How about in Europe, Pablo? What do you think? Do you think it's the same? Do you think there's maybe a different niche of consumers, or what kind of people?
As my perception and in the circles that I talk to, I have many vegetarian and vegan friends, and I think the target of cultivated and plant-based products is practically the same. They are both eco-friendly consumers that want to try a cruelty-free product without losing the meaty experience. And there is only one difference where I think maybe it's the target is splitted, and is these vegans that they claim, and I totally respect it, that they don't need any kind of animal sourced product to survive or to make their living. And I get it, and I think that's the only small portion of this community that will not be targeted by the cell-based industry. Anyway, I'm totally sure that some vegetarians and vegans that are more like the main reason is the environmental impact of this industry and the crueltiness of it. They will probably embrace this new product, maybe try it, and if they like it, they will probably keep consuming it for their daily life.
Okay. Yeah. I'm vegan. I've been vegan over 5 years. But I would try it. I mean, I say if there was really no cruelty involved, and it's because I'm vegan for both reasons, for environmental reasons and ethical reasons. But I think this takes on both. Both. It definitely, I don't see how there could be, much to any cruelty involved at all. And environmentally, it looks great. I read, especially when when cultivated meat is produced using renewable energy, it would be so much less. Even if it's not using renewable energy, it's less. But if it's using renewable energy, which hopefully it will be soon, because I think it's going to be coming up around the same time that renewables are going to start becoming more normal. So I'm thinking most new factories around the world are going to be using renewables. So I would think most of the factories for cultivated meat will be using renewable energy. So yeah, once it's out, I would try it. I would like to try it. I haven't had meat from an animal in over 5 years. So yeah, I would try it. If it's cultivated, I'd say, oh wow. It would be hard to say, somebody asked me, does it taste like it? Does it taste like the original thing? I would say, I don't know. I haven't had the original, the real thing in, years. So, but it tastes good. So that's all I would be able to say. So another question that, we kind of talked about a little bit, but maybe we can go into a little more detail is, these are two separate industries, but they can also work together. How can the plant-based and cell-based or cultivated meat industries work together and move forward to combat, of course, the environmental issues facing us today? What do you think, Eric?
I think that there's some of the technologies that are required to be developed for cultivated meat have a dual use application into the plant-based. We've seen, for instance, a lot of the articles that have attempting to denigrate the plant-based food products are around taste and texture, those types of things, and I think we have to remember that, as I stated earlier, we're only 10 years really into this, and that we're going to see different iterations of these products and versions, like version 3, at CMS, for instance. I remember folks from Good were there talking about that their version 4 of the chicken nugget that they're selling in Singapore was coming out, and that it was exponentially better than version 1. I mean, it's the same thing, like the iPhone 14 is exponentially better than the original iPhone, and that's only 14 years ago. So the same is going to happen with these food products, and so there's going to be an opportunity, I think, to do crossover between the two industries, at least some of the technologies. Again, I can, I not to be a commercial for, to be a blatant commercial for Matrix, but Matrix is doing that very same thing with providing the same tech to both plant-based and the cultivated meat industry, because the technology is needed in both places.
Excellent. Very interesting. And one more thing for both of you: predictions for the next 10 years. Eric, or actually Pablo. I'll give Pablo. What do you think, Pablo? How do you see the cultivated meat industry in the next 10 years in Europe?
So I consider that we have to pay attention on how the vegetarian and vegan community will be growing.
Yeah.
I saw recently some studies carried in Spain, and from 2017,
Yeah.
the from 2017 to 2021, the vegan and vegetarian community grew like a 40% or so. And this, I think this is also being this movement is growing because of education in early steps in schools and so on, where they are educating the kids, the current issues that we are facing. Like in 1980, nobody was recycling, and trying to do something for the world. But now this everybody is recycling in their house. Is weird if you go to somebody's place and they are not recycling. So in the same way, I think the consumers in the next 10 years, which are now are the younger consumers, in 10 years they will grow up and they will demand these products. So the both industries, the plant-based and the cell-based, will be growing among these. I hope that in 10 years we can find some cultivated meat products here in Europe. And yeah, it will depend on how these vegan and vegetarian and environmentally concerned consumers are growing, how big this community is, and in that will depend.
Great, great.
Yeah.
Eric, what are your thoughts?
I would like to see greater investment to accelerate the market from government, and also one of the things that makes it easier for a meat company to come to market, right, is if they have the picks and shovels, they have the constituent parts. I've told a couple of folks that obviously in addition to investing in companies like make sure I would also be looking at companies that produce fermentation tanks.
Yeah.
As an example, I mean, that's the picks and shovels. That's the unsexy part, if you will, or the uncool part of the business. But without, and that's, if you look at everybody, that's the largest challenge that they have is, are we going to have the manufacturing capacity to build? There was an explosion, at least in the U.S. There was in Canada, because of microbreweries. There was an explosion of companies manufacturing this food grade type equipment, but we're going to need a much larger manufacturing capacity to meet the demand of putting putting plants all over the place that are going to be able to produce this food. So I'm still hopeful that, like I said earlier, that by 2028 it'll be in the supermarket here. I know I think we'll be able to be eating cultivated meat in restaurants in the not too distant future here in the U.S. And hopefully Europe is right there going along with us. The one part of the world, the two parts of the world that I'd like to see more attention placed is, and Roberto, you know this from South America.
Yeah.
Colombians love their steak, right? They love their
Yeah.
beef, and then one of the things I noticed down there is the Cattlemen's Association is pretty powerful. And same thing in Argentina and Brazil.
Yeah.
If we're going to want to, move everything and get to that mass acceptance, we have to be looking at the whole world. But hopefully 10 years from now, this would be a much different conversation. We'd be talking about really cool, unique foods that have been born of the industry by then.
I have an idea. Let's set up another conference for February 28th, 2030, and we'll reminisce on this, and we'll talk about what has advanced, what has changed.
Hopefully, I'll
Right.
do that from a beach someplace. But I'll be
Yeah,
retired sitting on a beach. So
yeah.
and I'll be happy to do it at that point.
Definitely.
Cool.
But yeah, this has to be a global industry. Exactly. I hope it doesn't. I don't want to see just, in some countries this is implemented, but other countries are still using traditional meat and they refuse to accept this. No, I hope this becomes a global thing and globally accepted all over the world. Maybe, obviously, I guess by nature it won't all happen at the same exact time. But I am hoping that that this will happen. Quick question. I want to know if there's any questions from the audience. Can you, right now on my screen, I do not see the questions. Oh, here we go. Okay. Javier Vargas Aguilar. Okay. It says here that technology will only work for developed countries as the infrastructure is quite expensive. What are your opinions about it? I don't know. Any thoughts? What do you think? Who can answer that question?
I would say that that's one of the reasons why we need to make the investments in the industries that will be supporting this, to drive those costs of inputs down in order to make it, I mean, obviously the Europe and US, Canada, etc., Japan make a number of large donations of foreign aid to countries, and this will probably become one of those things that we'll be able to do.
Okay, good. Yeah, Pablo, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think that first we have to develop this technology and be able to bring it to supermarkets here in the most developed societies. And then while this step is taken and is already stable, we should then maybe consider to bring a hand and to try to share this technology, which in 10 years will be cheaper also. And we might bring this technology and make these countries able to produce it.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, eventually the prices are going to go down, and eventually it's going to become more democratized, etc. Like Eric had spoken about, like beer. Initially beer was just a luxury. I don't know the whole history of beer, so maybe I'm wrong, but I think that initially beer was just maybe a wealthier thing. Only a few people could have it, in certain parts of the world. Beer's been around for a long time, but I guess certain tastes and all that. And these days, everybody can drink beer everywhere. Not to encourage beer drinking, just using an analogy, not to promote alcohol consumption. So, anyways, that was excellent. Thank you very much, Eric and Pablo. Do any of you have any closing statements? Eric, would you like anything? Do you have any closing statements? Anything you'd like to say to our viewers here today?
No matter where you are in the world, I think folks need to be reaching out to their elected officials and telling them that this is an important issue to them personally, and that they would like the attention brought to this issue that is currently not really fully understood even by our elected officials in many parts of the world. Here at the United States is a perfect example. So that's what I would encourage. Reach out to your members of parliament, your members of Congress, etc., and tell them that this is an important issue for you.
Excellent. Pablo, do you have any closing statements?
Yeah, for me, I would like to highlight that it doesn't matter how much efforts are put in the technological barriers if there is no consumer willing to try this product. So it's pretty important to talk about this topic and to make people trust this product. And I'm really happy to be able to talk about this with Eric and you, and to make it closer to future consumers.
All right, great, excellent. So if anybody out there watching has any questions or anything, or would like to contact us, well, you can find us on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. We're all obviously on LinkedIn. Who's not on LinkedIn these days? So feel free to contact us. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to speaking to you again in the future. Thank you again, Eric and Pablo, for joining us. Really much appreciated, and very interesting conversation. And I hope our viewers here learned something today, and I hope they really embrace this as it's much more positive. It's not just like, oh, I prefer an apple to an orange. It's something very important, and I hope more people embrace this because it's very important for the future, for animals and for the planet and all that. So thank you very much. And have a great, I don't know, morning, afternoon, evening, whenever or wherever you're watching this.
Perfect.
Bye-bye.
Bye
Okay.
bye.
Bye-bye.